welcome back to Builds Not Projects. This week we're back on the Toyota. This is my 89 Toyota that I put a 1UZ. This is a VVT motor. We're going to be finishing up from the last video where I got the Spitronics ECU put in and got it fired up, so we'll get started. So in this video I want to get started on cleaning up all this wiring. So these run to a fuse panel. I don't remember what I was using those for. I'll have to kind of figure that out. This wire here went to a temperature sensor for the dash gauge. I need to hook it back up. I'm probably going to end up moving it from this side over to that side because the wiring harness it's got to attach to is in that corner on the inside of the cab. And now that I have less temp sensors hooked up, I should be able to move it over there because I also should be able to run the cooling fans off of the Spitronics ECU. It has a wire coming out of that to turn on the relays. So I think I'm going to hook that up too so I can get rid of the temperature switch that's in the block. And then that way I can control it a little better in the ECU because I can set on-off temperatures and all that. Also want to get these relays for the ECU hooked up, mounted on the firewall or on the inner fender somewhere. Just want to go through and clean a bunch of this stuff up. So essentially I'm going to be getting rid of all of the O2 sensor wiring as well. There's O2 sensor wiring in the cab that runs under the floor. I want to get rid of all that. And get rid of like stuff like this, little brackets. I want to build a new bracket for the power steering pump, as well as a new one for the fuel pressure regulator. Just want to go through, clean up the engine bay. It was something that I always wanted to do and never really got around to it because I needed to drive the thing, so I couldn't just tear into it and get it all cleaned up without having to do it all in one day. Also, on the inside over here, I got to clean up all of this wiring mess in here. So this is where all the factory Toyota ECU would have hooked in. Like this is that temp sensor wire here that goes to the dash. I'm currently working on rewiring the fuel pump relay. So let's see if I can add a little extra light and make this easier to see. So that orange wire there that's running to that connector now, that's going to be my fuel pump on command from the computer over there. So I'm going to run that wire up through the back of the dash and then tie it into the computer. So then that way the fuel pump isn't just on all the time when you turn the key on. It'll do a like 3-second prime when you turn the key on, and then the pump will turn off until you start cranking on it, and then it'll start pumping again. So I want to get that hooked up, as well as clean up a bunch of this wiring down here. There's also a tack wire that I need to hook up off of the ECU. So we'll get those wires put in, get all of this mess from before cleaned up. I'm going to have to pull out the driver's seat, I believe, to get the O2 sensor wiring because I ran it all under there. So we'll get all that stuff ripped out, get all this cleaned up, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to keep working on some wiring here, and then I'll update you here in a minute. All right, so I got the, that's the fuel pump output wire from the computer, is that orange one. It runs to this white with the red tracer at the fuel pump relay. This is behind the right side kick panel. Also, I tied into the black wire back down in here on the white connector there, if it'll focus. Tied into that black wire. That is the tack for the tack signal. It all runs up through here and then across. I also ran a wire up in here for that green one runs out into out to the fan relay, and then the red one is the ignition power that ties into the big black with the red tracer wire back down in there that runs to the gray connector. So all those are ran over behind the dash, so we theoretically should have all that hooked up now. So we'll find out. So those wires then run over to this side. They tie in. I got these 2 small red wires go to the computer for the ignition power. This fuse is for the heated seats that I got in here. I had to change over to a white wire halfway in between from the orange wire because I thought I had a longer section and it didn't end up being long enough and I didn't have any more orange wire. So that's the fuel pump output wire, and then the fan and the tack wire also hooked up. So let's see if the fuel pump and stuff works now. So the fuel pump should click that relay on for 3 seconds. Let's see. And fuel pump's off. I don't know if you could hear that or not. And then clutch cancel switch, and we'll see if the tack works. Yep, looks like the tack's working. It's actually reading a little high. I think I can adjust those settings in the computer with the laptop, so I'll have to mess with that later, but I think it's idling a little lower than that. I think it sounds to me like it's probably closer to 700 or 800, not 1200, maybe even like 600 or 700. So now that all those wires are hooked up, I can go ahead and get them all tucked away. Everything is tied up already on that side as far as those 4 wires go. I still need to run an oil pressure wire, and so we can at least go back together with this side. All right, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but Dad's sanding in the background. So currently this is inside the cab, got all the wiring all cleaned up. It's all back to where it needs to be. No great big computer stuck in here anymore. The air box is back in, so I can stick the kick panel back on, throw the glove box back in, throw the knee bolster back in over there, as well as the kick panel over there, and we'll be all done. All right, so it's all put back together now. We'll go out and give it a test drive. So up here, I got this mounted a little better, changed up the bracket a little bit, rerouted a bunch of wires. Yeah, so this is what it looks like all done. We got the new oil pressure sensor put in down there, all wired into the dash, as well as coolant temp sensors. So all that stuff is hooked up now. So everything on the dash should be working correctly, other than the tack that might be just a little bit off here. So let's see. This is the first time that it's ever had an oil pressure gauge that actually works. Up until this point, I never had it wired in. So we got oil pressure there and coolant temperature. Alternator's wired in now, so it's charging. Looks like I'm out of gas. So it's also idling a little bit goofy right now. I think that's just because it's cold. So we'll go see how this thing runs on the road. Well, time for its maiden test drive. Brought Jesse with me so we can see if we can make it to town to get some gas. It's not very far away, so hopefully we make it there.
to see it. Yeah, there's so much snow out here. Well, there's more than I thought there was. It's not.
Yeah, it drifted pretty bad today.
Not just like randomly cutting out.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't shut off yet, so it's better than it was doing before. Well, we made it to the old gas station, so we'll fill this bad boy up, head back home. So far, seems to be running good. Besides these tires that don't have much for tread left on them anymore. This thing seems to be running really good. Definitely need to fix the tach and the speedometer because the tach is reading way too high. Like you rev it up a little bit and it just swings all the way around. So got to fix that before we ruin that. And I think I just need to run a couple wires for the speedometer, but that shouldn't be a big deal. At least it's back on the road. Well, this is a new record for the amount of gas I've put in this thing. I've only ever put 13 in it, so it must have a 16-gallon tank, I guess. So yeah, we were almost out. Seems all right though. Well, the Toyota made it back home. Seems to be running really good so far. I'll have to get my better snow tires on it, and then we'll have to find somewhere and go wheeling with it a little bit. Never really done that with this thing very much, but I'm super glad it's back together. That computer seems like it's going to work really well. Seems to be running good so far, so we'll make sure you hit the like and subscribe button if you already haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.